7 years married. My wife has a boyfriend. Ethan was the most renowned urologist at Sterling Medical Center, having treated countless patients. One day, a flamboyant patient lifted his Rolex watch, bringing it closer to show off. Isn't my wife's monthly allowance generous? My CEO wife is so idle all day, always thinking of sending me gifts once a month. It's quite annoying. Ethan raised an eyebrow and glanced at him. Seeing Ethan ignore him, he completely lost his temper. You son of a bitch, I'll make sure your career is over. I'll make sure you pack your bags and get out this afternoon. I'm not afraid to tell you, my wife is the CEO of this hospital. When he saw the wedding photo on his phone, Ethan completely lost his composure because the woman kissing him was none other than Ethan's wife of 7 years. It was the first time Ethan had seen such a flamboyant man in the urology examination room, dressed in a pink suit as if afraid no one would notice him. After all, those who visit a urologist often have somewhat delicate situations, but the man before him was exceptionally flamboyant. Ethan suppressed the impatience between his brows and patiently asked about his daily life. He answered evasively, his eyes scanning Ethan up and down. Are all you doctors so lame? Especially types like you. Women are more likely to dislike you. Become my prot-G. And you might still have a chance at love. As he spoke, he brought the Rolex watch on his wrist closer to Ethan's eyes, showing off, look, this is my monthly allowance from last month, sent by my CEO wife. Generous, isn't it? Ethan frowned in annoyance, lightly tapping his knuckles on the table. Chad Evans, right? Other patients are still waiting. If you're not here for a consultation, perhaps you could yield your spot. In his 7 years as a doctor, Ethan had never encountered such a piece of work, someone showing off their wealth. Even at a hospital, Ethan lowered his gaze, preparing to receive the next patient. The next second, the patient chart on Ethan's desk was slammed onto the floor, startling everyone nearby into looking up. Chad Evans's expression visibly darkened. He scornfully eyed Ethan from the corner of his eye and said, "What are you acting so arrogant for? I'm offering to help you get rich for free, and you're not even grateful. Do you know who my wife is? Apologize to me right now. Otherwise, I'll make sure you get fired today." Ethan chuckled softly, adjusting his glasses. Who is your wife? Victoria Sterling. As soon as the name was uttered, the room immediately fell silent. That name was known to everyone in this hospital, because the chief of staff of the hospital was also named Victoria Sterling. The Sterling family was a renowned prominent medical dynasty in the area, possessing vast medical resources, including dozens of private hospitals. They were a powerful family in the region. Victoria Sterling herself held both CEO and chief of staff positions, and she was also Ethan's wife of 7 years. They were exceptionally loving towards each other. If the flamboyant peacock standing before him was her husband, then who was Ethan, her husband of 7 years? Ethan let out a scoff, seeing Ethan's doubtful expression. He furiously cursed under his breath, slamming his phone in front of Ethan and jabbing at the screen. Open your eyes and look. Is this or is this not Victoria Sterling? As his gaze fell upon the clear marriage certificate, the smile on Ethan's lips slowly faded. His mind felt as if it had been hit like a ton of bricks. Throbbing with pain, Ethan suddenly remembered that he and Victoria Sterling had never legally registered their marriage. Ethan clenched his palm, zooming in on the photo in front of him. It didn't look photoshopped. In the photo, Victoria Sterling's usually face had a rare hint of a smile, her eyes sparkling, displaying the joy of a new bride. Ethan's brow twitched, his fists clenched tight. When he saw the marriage date on the certificate, Ethan froze. They had been married for 7 years. Ethan's pupils constricted, his mind in turmoil. 7 years ago, the Sterling family, citing Ethan's orphan status and fearing he was after their wealth, refused to approve of his marriage to Victoria Sterling. No amount of kneeling or pleading from Ethan helped, until Victoria Sterling hugged him, softly coaxing him to wait a few years to register the marriage, to just put it off for a while. Ethan loved her deeply then. As long as they could be together, there was nothing he wouldn't agree to show his sincerity. He even transferred all academic papers under his name to Sterling Medical Center's credentials. They had an unregistered marriage for 7 years. Their marriage certificate had been issued 7 years ago. Was Victoria Sterling truly Ethan's partner, or was she his Chad's wife? Chad Evans, afraid Ethan wouldn't believe him, continuously scrolled through several wedding photos. Victoria Sterling was seen feeding him wine mouth to mouth and giving him massages, without a hint of reluctance, unlike with Ethan, where she always maintained an air of superiority. Ethan stared intently at the photos in his hand, his palms almost crushing. The patients and nurses, who had just been indignant, immediately changed their expressions, gathering around him and speaking kindly. Seeing Ethan still refusing to yield, Chad Evans grabbed Ethan's collar, sneering, "Are you scared now? Kneel. Apologize to me. Then I'll pretend nothing happened. Otherwise, He scoffed several times. Sarah, standing nearby, quietly tugged at Ethan and gave him a knowing look. Ethan concealed his expression, slapped his hand away, and, holding on to a last shred of hope, probed. Photoshop technology is so advanced now, it's hard to tell if a photo is real or fake. T asked. Fine. You've got guts. I'll let you see with your own eyes how you're going to die. He angrily poked Ethan with one hand while dialing a call with the other, until the familiar sound of hello came through. Ethan's legs went weak, and he almost collapsed into the chair. There was no mistake. That voice belonged to Victoria Sterling. Ethan couldn't be wrong. Photos could be faked, but a voice couldn't. Chad Evans said gruffly, "Honey, there's a complete cuckold at your hospital bullying me and trying to kick me out." Before he could finish, Victoria Sterling's voice on the phone immediately erupted in anger. "Which department?" "I'm coming to see for myself." Ethan stood dejectedly, his heart feeling as though a bucket of ice water had been poured over it, completely chilled. Seeing Ethan's distraught appearance, Chad Evans still wasn't satisfied. He held his head high, pushing Ethan with one hand, while arrogantly cursing, "You son of a bitch, I'll make sure your career is over." With that, he shoved Ethan hard again. Ethan, caught off guard, fell to the ground, and the medical instruments on the table crashed onto his hand with a clatter. Trickles of blood began to seep out. It hurt a lot, but it was nothing compared to the pain in his heart. Just as he was about to step forward, the next second, Victoria Sterling's concerned voice came through. "My husband, are you all right?" Ethan's heart stirred. He lifted his head, about to respond, but then saw Victoria Sterling holding Chad Evans's hand, showing concern and fussing over him. "Does your hand hurt? Did you scrape it?" Ethan's heart, which had just begun to warm, plunged completely into an ice pit. The next second, without a word, she violently hurled the documents in her hand at Ethan, questioning him. "Which doctor is training you? Get your department head out here. Pack your things and get out now." The documents rained down on Ethan's face. One by one, feeling numb, Ethan slowly looked up. Victoria Sterling's furious voice abruptly stopped. Her eyes widened, a mix of confusion and anger. After a moment, she found her voice, asking unnaturally, "Weren't you supposed to be at a conference today? Why are you here?" Suddenly, her expression changed as if she'd remembered something, and she reprimanded Ethan. "Don't you dare do anything to him. If you hurt him, I'm not done with you." The way she protected him, she truly looked like a woman fiercely devoted to her husband, yet Ethan was clearly her husband, but she treated him like a stranger. Ethan stared at her unblinkingly, and then suddenly laughed. As he laughed, his eyes gradually welled up. Sarah, standing nearby, quickly whispered an explanation for him. The organizers had delayed the academic conference, which was why Ethan hadn't been able to attend. Sarah saw Ethan's hand was still bleeding profusely and quickly asked if it hurt. But how could a physical wound compare to the pain in his heart? Ethan slowly shook his head, his peripheral vision constantly on Victoria Sterling, but she seemed to hear nothing, engrossed in conversation with her lover. Ethan used all his strength to suppress the bitterness in his heart, barely managing to maintain his composure. On this day, the 7-year marriage between Ethan and Victoria Sterling finally began to show cracks. Ethan's hand is injured. "Please get another doctor to attend to him." Just as Sarah was about to make arrangements, she was sharply stopped by Chad Evans. "Wait, I want you to examine me." Victoria Sterling looked at Ethan's hand, then at Chad Evans, and without hesitation, she immediately ordered, "Ethan, you're the one to examine him. Remember, clean your hands thoroughly, don't dirty his clothes. That's a limited edition gift I just bought him." Ethan's body stiffened. Like a robot, he cleaned his hands. "Proceed with the examination." Every second that followed was the greatest torment of his career. Victoria Sterling and Chad Evans' intimate laughter pierced Ethan's ears like needles. His usually nimble fingers felt frozen, trembling incessantly, unable to even unroll a disposable exam sheet. Sarah thought Ethan's hand hurt badly and stepped forward, offering to perform the examination for him. Victoria Sterling, however, extended her hand to stop her, scoffing, "As long as he doesn't die today, this examination must be done by him." Chad Evans, hearing this, smugly curled the corners of his lips once the curtain was drawn, leaving only the two of them in the examination room. His sarcastic voice rang out again, "You've messed with the wrong person by offending me. With that deadpan face of yours, I bet you're just a wimp in bed. Your wife probably gets annoyed just looking at you. Now look at my wife." It felt as if 1,000 flies were buzzing in his ears. Ethan pinched the bridge of his nose. The hospital was a workplace. Ethan didn't want to discuss his private affairs publicly. He uncharacteristically uttered 2 words, "Shut up." The next second, Victoria Sterling's reprimanding voice rang out, "Ethan, if you don't want to work, then get out. Don't you dare bully my people in front of me." Ethan's examining hand paused. He couldn't help but recall the department incident from a year ago. At that time, a female family member was causing a scene at their department entrance, cursing everyone because of her husband's surgery. She threatened to find people to deal with them. When Victoria Sterling arrived, She imperiously called the police and insisted the family member apologize to Ethan in person. It was rare for her to protect Ethan like that, like his knight in shining armor. Ethan was so thrilled he couldn't sleep all night, as happy as Ethan had been then. That's how heartbroken he was now. What Ethan had once thought was special favoritism turned out to be nothing more than fleeting attention. He unhesitatingly stripped off his clothes, his taut muscular physique gleamed under the lights, and his brown chest was covered in bruises, clearly showing that their activities had been not only intense, but also frequent. Chad Evans saw Ethan looking over, scoffed, and sneered. "My wife just loves this muscular physique of mine. It's useless for you to be jealous. Men rely on this, and you're no good anymore after today. Your medical career will be over." He spoke self-righteously, twisting and squirming continuously, his awkward movements making Ethan's brow furrow. So it was this effeminate demeanor that pleased Victoria Sterling. Yet every time Ethan had gone to the gym before, she would pull him back. She always claimed she detested muscular, brainless men and preferred Ethan's refined, introverted, scholarly appearance, which statement was the truth. She even called last night, saying she'd be working late through the night. It turned out she was working late through the night in bed with another man, and Ethan, like a fool, stayed home, cooking oatmeal for her all night, simply because she once said, "My husband, I love the oatmeal you make. It's so soft and fragrant." He even brought a two-person portion to her office at her request. Ethan's face remained impassive, but his heart was already in turmoil. As Ethan lightly pressed his belly, he subconsciously asked, "What did you have for breakfast this morning?" He paused, then casually replied, "My wife ordered oatmeal delivery." Ethan didn't hear another word of what he said next. He thought about how he had meticulously picked the vegetables in the kitchen last night, getting up in the middle of the night to adjust the heat, stewing it all night long, only for it to end up in the stomachs of her and her lover. It turned out Ethan was just a delivery guy. A string snapped in his mind, and his heart felt as if a knife was scraping back and forth, the pain tearing through him. Ethan wished he had a knife in his hand to slice the man beneath him into pieces, so he could no longer flaunt himself so smugly in front of Ethan. Chad Evans saw Ethan's pale face and cold sweat, and suddenly smiled. He deliberately pulled down his underwear. Chapter 2, 7 years married. "My wife has a boyfriend." His thighs were covered in bruises, extending downwards, highly suggestive. Ethan abruptly stopped his hand, his chest heaving violently, his eyes bloodshot. Chad Evans's eyes darted, and he suddenly shrieked loudly, "Ow! It hurts! It hurts!" The next second, the curtain was violently pulled open, and Victoria Sterling's figure appeared in the examination room. She looked with concern at Chad Evans, who was constantly thrashing on the bed. Her expression darkened, and without a word, she viciously slapped Ethan, with a loud slap. The entire department fell silent. Ethan covered his face, staring at her with disbelieving, wide eyes. "You've really gotten bold. How dare you hurt him right in front of me? Get out! Get out!" Ethan laughed in anger. Just as he was about to explain, Chad Evans cried out again, "Ow! Ow!" Victoria Sterling immediately rushed forward, calling him honey incessantly. With one hand, she rubbed his belly, while with her mouth, she scolded Ethan. "Ethan, if anything happens to him, I'll make sure you never practice medicine again." Her eyes like daggers, she looked at Ethan coldly, as if Ethan were her sworn enemy. Yet Ethan had loved her for 10 years, 3 years in college, 7 years married. He even chose to become a doctor because he could be in the same hospital as her and see her every day. A few years ago, after his surgical papers were published, a top-tier hospital abroad extended an invitation, asking him to study overseas. Upon returning to the country, he would have been the head of department at a leading hospital. Ethan had prepared everything, but she said, "My husband, if you leave, who will take care of me? Who will I call when my stomach hurts?" Without a second thought, Ethan politely declined the offer that very night. He willingly stayed at this private hospital, working as a perfectly ordinary urologist. But now, how absurd! She didn't see the redness and swelling on Ethan's face, the cold sweat, or the still wet blood on his hand. In her eyes, there was only Chad Evans. "Honey, how are you?" Seeing Chad Evans's pale face, her gaze, when it swept over, grew even colder. "Don't worry. I've already found the best specialist for you." She tightly gripped Chad Evans's hand, softly comforting him without pause, not sparing a single glance for Ethan. Outside, the temperature was continuously high, but Ethan felt cold all over, in a daze. He had the illusion that the woman before him had no relation to him whatsoever. The affection of those 7 years was merely a figment of Ethan's one-sided imagination. From beginning to end, they were a couple, and Ethan was merely a pawn in their game. Ethan closed his eyes, a tear tracing its way down his cheek. "Honey, I don't know where this wimp pressed me, but it hurts so much. He isn't trying to kill me, is he?" As soon as Chad Evans said this, Victoria Sterling's expression, which had just begun to soften, tensed up again, her eyes blazing. She strode purposefully towards Ethan and raised her hand high. Just as her hand was about to fall, it was stopped by a bloodied hand. Victoria Sterling, that's enough. Ethan squeezed out a voice from deep in his throat, questioning her directly. The raging fury in his eyes making her flinch. She couldn't believe that her usually submissive, almost humble husband had suddenly become so assertive. Fine. Ethan, you've done wrong, and you still dare to yell at me. She was furious. Her eyes reddened. Acting as if Ethan was the one cheating, Ethan endured the overwhelming desolation in his heart and asked hoarsely, "Between the two of us, who exactly is your husband? Since you two are so in love, I'll grant you your wish." As soon as he finished speaking, Ethan, ignoring her reaction and the man's expression on the bed, neatly took off his white coat. Sadly, this blood-stained coat would never be white again, just like their fractured marriage. Behind him, Victoria Sterling's sharp, biting curses filled the air. But Ethan ignored them and turned to leave. His swollen face drew all sorts of speculation as he walked, numbly, like a puppet drained of its soul. Just then, an unknown message popped up on his phone. He opened it. It was a magnified ultrasound pregnancy report. The word pregnant stinging Ethan's eyes. Messages kept coming. Wimp. She's pregnant, and it's my baby. So, had fun today? Just you wait. I'm going to make your life hell. Ethan stared intently at the pregnancy report for a long time, unable to stop mocking himself. Ethan, you're truly a complete cuckold. Every word Victoria Sterling had said before, it turned out, was a lie. When they first married, Ethan expressed his desire for children and to become a father. But then she said with a troubled expression that the family business was almost entirely under her name, and facing childbirth right after inheriting the family legacy might cause chaos. Later, she had been in a car accident and nearly lost her life. Doctors told Ethan she had suffered injuries to her lower body and that a future pregnancy could be life-threatening. Ethan loved her so much that he didn't want her to face even the slightest risk. After she was discharged, Ethan secretly found an acquaintance and, without her knowledge, underwent a vasectomy. But now, this pregnancy report, it caught Ethan completely off guard. She was actually willing to risk her life to have a child with that flamboyant man. For these 7 years, Ethan had lived a complete joke. Ethan covered his face with his hands, desperately suppressing the sobs in his throat as tears fell one by one through his fingers. Ethan indifferently deleted the message and blocked the number. Well, if Chad Evans wanted to play games, so be it. The next day, while Ethan was still in bed, Victoria Sterling's call came through. "What are you doing? I didn't even come after you for how you treated Chad yesterday. And you skipped work?" "I resigned," Ethan said expressionlessly. She paused at his words, then continued, "Hey, so you finally feel guilty, huh? Chad was in pain all last night. Let's get divorced," Ethan said, his voice cold. She kept talking nonstop, but then suddenly stopped, realizing what he had said. "What do you mean? Say that again." She was furious on the phone, as if Ethan had committed some unforgivable crime. Ethan simply laughed. "Victoria Sterling, what are you pretending for? Didn't you two register the marriage ages ago? You even have a child. Are you seriously trying to play me for a fool? Is it fun to deceive me?" Ethan gnashed his teeth, demanding angrily, word by word. Uncharacteristically, she didn't utter a sound, and her breathing on the phone was exceptionally clear. After a few seconds, she stammered, trying to make amends. "I registered the marriage with him to help him deal with his family. He's not like you. His parents are alive and pushing him so hard. The child, you can't just make things up about the child. He's yours. He's your own flesh and blood." Before she could finish, Ethan fiercely smashed the glass ashtray beside him onto the floor. The sharp sound scraped at his eardrums, making him dizzy, only then alleviating the overwhelming pain that suddenly surged in his chest. Ethan gritted his teeth, his eyes bloodshot, and cursed, "My child? I had a vasectomy after your car accident, so where would a child come from? You've lied to me for 7 years. A full 7 years. You truly disgust me. Get out. Stay away." Ethan hung up the phone abruptly, his chest heaving, his eyes wet again. Ethan's orphan status had become her original sin for not getting legally married. What kind of woman had Ethan truly loved? She was simply a heartless ingrate. 7 years ago, on the night of their wedding reception, Ethan apologized to her, explaining that as someone on his own, he couldn't offer much help to her career even if they were married. She had gently comforted Ethan then, saying, "My husband, just being with you is enough. Being on your own even saves me the trouble of mother-in-law issues. I'm already very content. From now on, it'll just be the two of us, living happily." The vows were still fresh in his ears, but the person was different. Ethan composed himself and packed all his bags. Just then, a message from his lawyer came back. Ethan and Victoria Sterling had been married for 7 years without registering the marriage or having children. If they truly separated, the asset division would be quick. The house they were currently living in had been bought together. She paid the down payment, Ethan paid the mortgage, and the property deed was in both their names. Once this house was divided, they would have no further TIs, Ethan thought to himself, his hands continuously packing. Just then, a knock came from the front door. He opened it to find Eleanor Sterling. The moment she saw Ethan, her face creased with disdain, and her eyes filled with mockery. "It's broad daylight, and you're not at work, just resting at home. Although my daughter is both CEO and chief of staff, the money she earns belongs to the Sterling family. It's not for supporting you. You'd better get that straight." After saying that, she disregarded Ethan's expression, pushed him aside, and walked straight into the house. In the past, Ethan would have gritted his teeth and acted as a compliant son-in-law, listening to her curses. Now, Ethan no longer wished to tolerate such annoyance. He immediately retorted sarcastically, "You should ask your daughter. Which gigolo is she spending her money on? I've never spent a single cent of the Sterling family's money. Don't come to my home and be passive-aggressive. I didn't invite you." She stared at Ethan in astonishment. Her face flushed with anger. Do you believe me when I say I'll make Victoria divorce you?" "Don't think." Ethan immediately cut her off, nodding eagerly. "Please do. Please leave." A feeling of satisfaction he had never known before surged within him. Ethan directly opened the door wide, his open arms clearly signaling her departure. Eleanor Sterling cursed under her breath, pointing at Ethan like he was insane for a long moment before she reluctantly left. Looking at the closed front door, Ethan let out a deep breath. From then on, Ethan would no longer have to compromise himself or carefully try to please anyone. With his bags packed and a new place rented, Ethan boarded a northbound train. Back then, fresh out of medical school, all his senior classmates had followed Dr. Peterson and stayed at a leading hospital in Metropolis. Only Ethan, for the sake of Victoria Sterling, had returned to Riverwood. He only got to chat with them a few times a year at academic conferences. His senior classmates, seeing Ethan's contentment, didn't say much. Among them, Marcus was Ethan's best friend. As soon as he got off the train, Marcus drove Ethan around leisurely. "You've finally come to your senses. What's your plan now?" he asked, turning his head to look at Ethan as he drove. Ethan gave a bitter smile and shook his head. Now, Ethan felt like a rudderless ship, utterly lost. Seeing Ethan's haggard and despondent look, he sighed with disappointment, then said after a moment, "Don't lose heart. A brilliant doctor like you will be sought after by every hospital. How about you come check out my place? We can work together." Seeing his sincere invitation, a strange warmth coursed through Ethan's heart. Back in school, Marcus had always had reservations about Victoria Sterling's character and had even warned Ethan several times. "Ethan, she has ulterior motives. Be careful." But Ethan was completely ensnared in her gentle trap then, never doubting her in the slightest, and he stopped mentioning her in front of Marcus. Gradually, Marcus found it difficult to say more, and it wasn't until today that Ethan finally woke up. "After I finish my last paper, I'll go abroad." Marcus saw that Ethan's thoughts were clear and nodded with satisfaction. During his school days, Ethan was the most diligent among all the students in publishing papers. Sterling Medical Center's flourishing reputation in recent years was largely due to its renowned academic research in the industry. Most patients came specifically seeking their reputation. Over time, Victoria Sterling got carried away. That evening, just as Marcus dropped Ethan off at the hotel, Victoria Sterling's call came through. As soon as he answered, she cursed him out. "How dare you, Ethan? You were disrespectful to my mother. Are you insane? What exactly are you stirring up trouble about? I just registered our marriage with him and had a child, and you're making such a scene." Listening to her ranting on the phone, Ethan suppressed his anger, remaining silent. Seeing Ethan's silence, she thought he had come to his senses and softened her voice. "Ethan, I still care about you. Stop this nonsense. Aren't you still planning to publish a paper? The entire hospital is waiting." Ethan gripped his phone tightly and sneered. This must be why she kept holding on to Ethan. How wrong she must have felt, hiding it for so long. "Stop with the pipe dreams. Let's get divorced. Since we're not legally married, it'll be a clean break. I've already sent you the property division agreement. Sign it." Before Ethan could finish speaking, she decisively hung up the phone. Ethan scoffed and set about transferring all his academic qualifications. Since the Sterling family cared about this the most, Ethan would make sure they could see but couldn't possess it. With the help of Dr. Peterson and Marcus, the transfer of academic credentials proceeded very smoothly. as the document's finalization approached. Victoria Sterling almost blew up Ethan's phone. Staring at his constantly ringing phone, Ethan simply blocked her number. After his last meal with Marcus, Ethan returned to his rented place in Riverwood. However, he unexpectedly found Victoria Sterling at the door, unlike before. She looked a bit haggard, and her slightly protruding belly was even more noticeable under her fitted clothes. "Ethan, you're back." She immediately rushed towards him, delighted. The moment she saw him, Ethan's brows furrowed, and he subtly turned to avoid her. Perhaps due to his mental state, the sight of her now simply disgusted Ethan. He felt an uncontrollable urge to vomit. Ethan took a step back, his voice cold. "Ms. Sterling, is there something you need?" Her surprised expression instantly froze, and her steps came to an abrupt halt. After a moment, she asked tentatively, her expression unnatural, "Those papers, could they know?" Knowing what she was about to ask, Ethan decisively cut her off, no longer wanting to hear her blabber on for a second. Seeing Ethan give her no face at all, her expression finally darkened, and a ruthless glint flashed in her eyes. "Ethan, are you trying to burn bridges with me? You know the Sterling family's influence here. I advise you to think carefully." Ethan couldn't help but applaud her in his mind. Seeing that the soft approach didn't work, she immediately resorted to the hard one. With her first words, she threatened Ethan with the Sterling family's power. "You're truly choosing the hard way. Believe me, if I leave today, tomorrow you won't even keep your medical license. Try it." Ethan stared steadily at her. Then he took out the separation agreement from his bag and slapped it hard onto her. She held the agreement with both hands, her pupils constricted, muttering incoherently, "You're actually this heartless. You bastard! You worthless piece of trash! I must have been blind to marry you. Who's the one with no integrity?" Ethan roared, his eyes blazing with fury. In their 7 years together, Ethan had always been gentle and considerate with her, never even raising his voice. But now, Ethan's eyes were bloodshot, his expression ferocious. He was no longer the docile simp she remembered. She trembled with fear, her legs shakily retreating. "Get out. Just looking at you makes me feel nauseous." Ethan gave her a cold, cutting glance, no longer wishing to be entangled with her. The next day, Sarah secretly messaged Ethan, telling him that Victoria Sterling was tampering with his past surgical records, planning to incite a family member to cause trouble for Ethan and use it as an excuse to revoke his medical license. Ethan typed out a line of text for her and then put down his phone. He listed the house online, searching for a suitable buyer. As soon as the house sold, the funds would go directly into her account. Ethan would have no further ties with this femme fatale. The next day, as expected, a family member started a commotion at Sterling Medical Center, holding protest signs and loudly demanding that Ethan be banned from the medical profession. With the help of malicious intent and a campaign orchestrated by malicious parties, Ethan was indeed cyberbullied, becoming known among netizens as a disgrace to the medical profession, unethical. Some online spectators even openly taunted, "He's probably still a pathetic cuckold." Overnight, Ethan became the most notorious person in Riverwood. When Marcus and Dr. Peterson saw this, they urgently called Ethan in the middle of the night, asking for the full story. Ethan smiled and comforted them, saying it was fine. To let things play out, during this time, Chad Evans didn't rest either, continuously sending Ethan videos of the hospital protest from unknown numbers, but Ethan ignored them all. Instead, he secretly used a secondary account to download many useful videos from Chad's social media accounts. The Sterling family indeed wielded significant influence in Riverwood, and with all the commotion, the authorities did call Ethan to inquire about the incident. If Ethan couldn't provide strong evidence, he would have to accept defeat. Just then, Victoria Sterling calmly invited Ethan to meet and talk. Ethan, wearing a face mask, readily went. She and Chad Evans acted like a loving couple, snuggling together, feeding each other coffee mouth to mouth. Their overly affectionate display made everyone shake their heads. But they paid no attention. The moment he saw Ethan, Chad Evans immediately straightened up and taunted, "Coward! Scaredy cat! After that whole commotion with the patient's family, you can only go out wearing a face mask now. So useless." Ethan bared his teeth slightly and mumbled, "Yeah, mostly I just find despicable couples disgusting. Gotta ward off bad vibes." As soon as Ethan said this, Victoria Sterling's expression changed, and she was about to speak, but Chad Evans was completely enraged. He held Victoria Sterling back. He furiously charged at Ethan. Ethan subtly shifted towards Victoria Sterling, hooking his long leg under the table. With a crash, Chad Evans took a face plant. Everyone in the coffee shop covered their mouths, trying not to laugh. How could Chad Evans, who loves to show off and save face, possibly tolerate this? He glared fiercely at Ethan, cursing obscenities. Just as he was about to get up, Ethan, with quick reflexes, splashed the hot coffee from the table directly onto him. Coffee drenched Chad Evans's entire head and face. He closed his eyes, groping around to get up, but accidentally grabbed Victoria Sterling. With a shriek, Victoria Sterling was pulled down by him and fell heavily to the ground. Almost simultaneously, a pool of blood began to seep from beneath her. Spreading out, Ethan watched coldly as the two entangled figures on the ground. He felt no pity whatsoever. By the end of that day, Victoria Sterling was taken away in an ambulance, and Chad Evans, still covered in coffee, was also put inside. That afternoon, a hospital abroad announced an offer letter for Ethan, inviting him to perform surgery as lead surgeon. With a top-tier international hospital endorsing him, netizens' attention surged even higher. Ethan, meanwhile, calmly uploaded all the evidence during the evening's peak hours. As soon as the videos of the protest and recordings that Victoria Sterling had secretly instigated a family member to create appeared, the already popular online post gained even more traction. Many netizens had an epiphany after watching the videos. Realizing that the person they had been cursing as a disgrace to the medical profession was actually the victim of the entire incident, they furiously left comments below the online post. This Ms. Sterling is too ruthless. With one move, she tried to ruin someone's entire career. Exactly. This male doctor is so pitiful, but why did he insist on resigning? Could there have been some romantic entanglement with Ms. Sterling? More and more netizens left comments, spontaneously acting as Sherlock Holmes. Ethan, seeing the timing was right, found his landlord and uploaded the video of her threatening him that day. And that wasn't all. Patients Ethan had once cured also began to act as Ethan's organic supporters under the online post. Nurses and doctors from the hospital also secretly left anonymous comments for netizens, saying Ethan was a highly ethical and good doctor. While one person might dismiss Ethan as useless, the collective praise of many formed a powerful wave of support. Even university alumni, unable to stand by, posted Ethan and Victoria Sterling's 10-year relationship history online. Upon learning the truth, netizens spontaneously began to curse Victoria Sterling. How did that woman become chief of staff? She can't hold a candle to Dr. Ethan. She's truly blind as a bat. Curse her whole family to go bankrupt. For a truly great man like Dr. Ethan to be betrayed by a despicable woman, it's truly unjust. The Sterling family's market value hit rock bottom overnight. That day, Victoria Sterling, dressed in simple clothes, with swollen eyes, found Ethan, tugging at his pant leg and apologizing through tears. Ethan, I know I was wrong. Please forgive me. It was all Chad Evans who seduced me. I've always loved you. Ethan visibly recoiled, as if fearing contamination from something unclean. He simply watched her in silence, his face devoid of any expression. She paused, then burst into loud sobs once more, fiercely slapping herself repeatedly. She looked exactly like a mentally ill patient. At this point, Ethan no longer harbored any hatred for her. She was simply a stranger to him. No lingering emotions remained, only disgust. Go. I don't want to see you, Ethan said, his voice flat. At his words, her tears flowed even more heavily, her eyes filled with despair and remorse. Seeing Ethan about to leave, she lunged forward, grabbing onto his leg, and cried with heart-wrenching sobs, Ethan, I have nothing left. I've been kicked off the board, Ethan. You're the only one I have left. Please, give me another chance. Ethan offered a silent smile. This woman had always been so selfish. To her, Ethan was nothing more than a source of value and profit. He had thrown away 7 years of devotion. Unfortunately, only now did he see her true colors. Serves her right. Ethan roughly pushed her away, casting a disgusted glance at her, and spoke with a cold tone. Every extra glance at you makes me feel nauseous. Just be a good person. Stay away. With those words, Ethan turned and walked away, no longer caring about the deafening sobs behind him. Just then, the investigation results from the authorities were released. Ethan was cleared of any wrongdoing. The next morning, Ethan filed a lawsuit against Victoria Sterling and Sterling Medical Center for malicious defamation. Meanwhile, Victoria Sterling was lying in a hospital bed, clinging to life. Sarah's assistant privately informed Ethan that Victoria had risked pregnancy only to suffer a fall that resulted in a miscarriage. Not only could she no longer bear children, but she was also left unable to have children the day the diagnosis was released. Victoria Sterling had a complete mental breakdown at the hospital. She frantically searched for Chad Evans. Meanwhile, he had already fled with the assets the moment he heard the news. Soon after, the court directly ordered the Sterling family to pay Ethan a substantial sum of money and issue an apology. Later, after Ethan went abroad, Marcus informed him Victoria Sterling had committed murder. She somehow obtained information on Chad Evans' whereabouts, and with a knife, confronted him, stabbing him more than 20 times, each thrust deeper than the last. She also mumbled, "This is for making you go to the doctor. This is for bullying Ethan. It's your fault. All your fault." Finally, she even cut off his manhood. Victoria Sterling was ultimately arrested and imprisoned, while Ethan had already begun a new chapter.